I do not have a moderator for the stream, so you're gonna have to bear with me. So what I want to make this about is actually talking about the difference in like older vehicles versus like newer vehicles and what makes something good versus inherently bad. Huh? I don't know. So let's get into it. When you got an old car back in the old days, like early 2000s, you're buying a vehicle mostly to last. It would last you almost a lifetime. I'll be honest with you, if you really took care of it. But there's a caveat to that. So these older vehicles, they're only relevant as long as you can still get parts for the vehicle. Versus brand new vehicles, you can usually go into a dealership, but that's proven not to be true because there's a lot of times you get a brand new car and the dealership won't have any parts in stock, and I don't know what changed. Um, it's 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 just a mess. I don't know why we've got to this, but it got bad around 2020. Around the pandemic, they stopped making a lot of parts, and I think a lot of brands decided that hey, there's more money in selling a brand new car than selling you a part to fix your old car. So I think a lot of them actually quit making parts for that reason alone, making like a lot of these cars obsolete after about 5, 6, 7 years. So basically, the life of the vehicle these days. Whereas these older cars, man, if you can get parts like old muscle cars, you can go into summit racing and damn near get anything you want. You can keep a car on the road for years, absolute years. Um, man, my 80s Toyota 4Runner, like mechanically, I can restore it pretty easy. Cosmetically, it's not so easy to restore, but it's such a basic vehicle that you could almost do anything to redo the interior. Sky's the limit as far as like what you can do and can't do with these older vehicles. Personally, I think I'll stick with my old junk. I had the option to get a brand new vehicle. Do I want a brand new vehicle? Not really. In my personal opinion, they've got to be to the point that so much of the vehicle's actually made out of plastic. Uh, it's just not worth my time to even consider a brand new car, if you know what I mean. After 10 years, I just don't foresee like a lot of these newer vehicles being even relevant after about 10 or 15 years. Whereas like an older vehicle, your classics, you can keep them on the road for quite a long time. And as long as parts are available, that's a big thing. The catch 22 here is like if you can get parts for an older vehicle, it's pretty sweet to keep them on the road. But if there's no parts available, you're I don't know what to say, up creek without a paddle on some of these. I mean, like old muscle cars, definitely old trucks. You can always do an engine swap. Uh, you can always do anything to keep an old vehicle on the road. Versus like these newer vehicles being front wheel drive. Nah, man. What are you gonna do? You can't swap a V8 in there. Like you're very limited on options. Yeah, you can do stuff, but is it gonna be anywhere as good and as reliable as something like your classic like Ford Bronco? You can put anything in there. Like the sky is the limit on this stuff. Personally, I think I'll take the old vehicle, and as long as you can keep getting parts for these things, you can keep them on the road. Another thing to talk about too, like with this whole debacle and like what makes old cars good versus like the new stuff, is like the smog exemption laws. So if you get something that's pre 73, you're pretty much smog exempt for the majority of it. So you can swap in anything. You can swap in a diesel. You can swap in all kinds of different motors. Whereas if you've got a smog area vehicle, you're kind of limited on what you can and can't do with that vehicle just based on what the emissions laws stated that the car had in the first place. So it's kind of a travesty in my opinion. Uh, I do love like I don't know, like the experience of owning an older vehicle. It's a different experience versus like your new car. you don't have like airbags in your old cars, you know, go out this world like a man, I suppose. Uh, God. Uh, New cars, yeah, the comfort level's there. Like it's just a way more comfortable experience to be cruising down the road in a new car than your old car for sure. But the old car, like they'll keep going as long as you have the ambition to get the parts, keep them on the road. They will last for absolute ever, and that's a kind of a good thing to have in like vehicles. Not everybody wants to work on a car, and I get that 100%. Um, yeah, I like working on my old junk, obviously. Obviously, I got a whole garage full of old junk. But hey, it is what it is. I just want to keep working on the vehicles, keep things going, and that's always been my big passion in life is working on vehicles, using my hands, doing that, keeping old stuff on the road. I just like turning wrenches. I'm not a professional mechanic by any means or anything like that. I'm just your average blue collar guy that knows how to turn a wrench, and I like working on old stuff. These new cars, another problem with these new vehicles that we got these days is a lot of that stuff you you can't fix it without getting your scan tool and actually plug it in and telling the car that alternator that you just put in, that's the alternator for this vehicle. You're gonna communicate. Get a lot of these parts to actually communicate together on these new cars is a headache. So I don't think I could ever get into like the actual trade of working on vehicles and actually making that happen. I don't know where I'm going with my life at this point. But for now, I'm just going to keep wrenching on my old stuff and working towards, I guess, my goal, I would suppose. I don't know what my goal is anymore, other than to get my 4Runner going and go out and do some exploring out here in Nevada. Yeah, I'm trying to bounce off, like think of different ideas for the stream. So this is actually the first stream I've done in a very long time. So sorry, I'm a bit rusty if I'm not the most captivating person out there. But yeah, I'm gonna push towards some goals and make some things happen. Also, I did figure out what's going on with my rear power window on the 4Runner. So apparently somebody at some point had busted apart the rear wiper switch and lost all the interior parts, like the brass contacts and all that stuff. So, yeah, I don't know. So we got some comments. Say hi, hello, how's it going? And can you sub, please? I could consider subbing. I could do that for you. Other than that, I don't think I got any other comments. No input on me? Okay. Yeah, I think like the 89 Toyota 4Runner I picked, that the thing's absolute basic case. It's a project, but I'm definitely willing to put in the work into that project to make it happen. As far as like ever doing like an axle swap or something like that on it, I've considered doing an axle swap, making it a little bit more off-road capable in the long run, but I'm not sure. I'm really not sure if I'm gonna solid axle swap it. I do want to try to Rubicon at some point, and we'll see. If I start breaking stuff on this vehicle, I'm basically gonna start considering like swapping out some parts, try and make it a better rig. If I do start breaking axle parts, I'm considering going with a Chevy 6-bolt, like a Dana 45, and maybe a Chevy 10-bolt in the rear if I can find axles for it. That would be the best swap in my opinion, swapping out and going to a Chevy axle, because little do you know, the Chevy axles, the Chevy axles actually have the same bolt pattern as your Toyota axles and all that stuff. So if it's a 6-bolt Chevy, you'll probably fit your Toyota wheels right on there. So outside doing like an actual Chevy, well, actually doing an actual Toyota axle, which are kind of hard to find. in my opinion. And they're a bit overpriced if you do find a Toyota axle. Let's be honest here. I would go ahead and just consider doing a Chevy axle swap because I think they're a little bit easier to find here in the United States. Last time that Toyota made axles for their trucks was maybe 1985. Yeah, I believe 85 was last year that they did an axle in their vehicle, and then after that in 86 they ditched it and went to a independent. Well, that's true for the pickups and the 4Runners, but the Land Cruiser had axles in the Land Cruiser, I believe, until around 96. I could be wrong. I'm not much of a Land Cruiser person, but I think a Land Cruiser axle swap would actually be a pretty good option for your Toyota stuff as well. That's again if you can find them, because I think a lot of the Toyota guys, they really, they look for this stuff. So just hands down, I think for doing an axle swap for your Toyota, Chevy 6 Bolt Dana 45 would be your best option, in my opinion. But that's just a hillbilly on the internet. Who knows? Anyhow, I wanted to experiment with going live here. I wanted to see if anybody actually wanted to join in and talk for a bit and talk about cars and the general gist of what makes a vehicle a vehicle. Again, I do think old vehicles, definitely the way to go if you want to keep a vehicle on the road pretty much indefinitely, as long as there's parts availability for it. New cars, I don't see them lasting all that long, maybe 10 years these days. I'm sure there's always going to be somebody keep stuff on the road. Hey, what's happening, TRX Junkie? Hopefully you're doing good. Thank you for saying hi, bro. Yeah, I'm just hanging out in the garage trying to do some stuff to keep my head on straight after losing my job there. So what am I gonna do? Just keep going, I guess. Hopefully the stream looks good on your end. But where was I at? So yeah, I just think classic vehicles is the better option. That's if you want to turn a wrench. That's the big... Oh, you're in Vegas? Bro, you're in Vegas. I'm in Reno. We should go riding at some point. I got my dirt bike. Throw it in the back of the truck. I'll come out. Go riding. I don't know if he's still riding. I know it's been a long time since I've talked to you. If there's anybody else in this stream, TRX Junkie, I've known this guy. He's been following my channel for years. 7 hours away. Always a good option. I was thinking about going out there and actually doing some mine exploring. That was something that I was super thinking about, is just going out and spending my time doing some exploring now that I got the 4Runner up and going. Go out, explore the desert, go find some ghost towns, mining camps, stuff like that. There's plenty of it out there by Vegas. I noticed there's not a whole lot of it over here by Reno, which is interesting. There's still some of it out here, but there's not the sheer amount of craziness that you find over by Vegas. There's a lot of stuff out there in the desert if you know where to look. Well, thank you very much, sir, for joining the stream. Yeah, I'm just trying to... These days, I'm trying to get back into the whole YouTube thing. I know, for a long time, I haven't been doing it, and the reason being, truck driver, didn't have a whole lot of time, but now that I've kind of cleared out my schedule here, I got time. So, yeah, life just keeps marching on. Well, anyways, I think this is good for a stream. I've had about 14 minutes here. I don't know, let's round it up to 20 minutes. Get this stream, we'll keep it going anyways. So yeah, I think I thought about taking my KLR out and going out in the desert. That's one thing that's pretty much gearhead related. There's my KLR. Oh, and there's a seat for my 4Runner too on the floor. I thought about gearing up on this and actually heading out into the desert to go explore some stuff, but right now it's dumping rain in Reno. So I'm thinking about maybe just taking out the 4Runner at some point. There's a nice little ghost town out by Reno. It's just past, actually, Dayton, Nevada. So that town is actually called Como, Nevada. It's on my list of things to do. Hopefully I can get out there and like actually do some recording. Check out Como. Hopefully that town's pretty sweet. I don't think there's a whole lot left of it. Probably the most pronounced structure in a town these days is the old Como post office. That's still there. Outside that, oh, the mill site. The mill site's still there in Como, Nevada. But I don't think there's a whole lot left there, but I'm not sure. Unless I go there and I take a drone to Como, Nevada, and go wheeling up there, like I have no clue what's left. I don't know if the mine shafts or the adits are still open. A lot of people, in my opinion, don't do a very good job of like documenting the site, but hard to say. There's probably nothing out there, but there could be more to it. I know back in the 30s, like when the town was actually abandoned because there was a lack of high-grade ore in the area. There was wooden structures, and as you know, after almost 100 years now, like wood doesn't last. The wooden structures are typically all rotted away at this point. So, yeah, look forward to like more wheeling. I'm going to take up the 4Runner. I did figure out what's wrong with my window switch on the 4Runner. Here, let me grab something real quick and I'll show it to you. So there's some weird wiring stuff going on with the 4Runner. So what that had to do with was somebody bypassed the window switch, the windshield wiper switch. And the reason they did that is they pulled this thing apart. And I don't know if you can see, but they lost all of the internals, unfortunately. So when this is in the off position, then you can roll up and down your rear window in the 80s Toyota. I'm sure that's the case in the 90s Toyotas too. You have to have the windshield wiper off on the back window in order to roll it down, or else that would cause a bunch of chaos in the backseat of your vehicle. Well, once I figured out this was busted, after doing some wire diagnostic on it, I pulled it apart and found out just all the internals are smoked. They're gone. So I just bypassed this for now. I got my back window rolling up and down in the 4Runner, which is great. Now I have access to the bed of the truck. I'm going to finish up a few things. I noticed the key switch on the back of the truck is now no longer working, so I'm just going to take things apart one piece at a time and work on just cleaning parts and getting stuff working again, which, you know, that's a big thing about keeping a vehicle on the road, as TRX Junkie knows. You know, as long as you clean stuff and take care of it, grease all your bushings, the bearings, ball joints, you can keep stuff on the road pretty much indefinitely. Again, with the exception, as long as aftermarket support is. So vehicle maintenance at the end of the day is always a very important thing, especially if you're trying to keep your old cars on the road, which a lot of these new cars, again, ball joints, stuff like that, they're non-greasable from the factory, and that's a big factor to me, like, you know, why these newer cars are just not going to last. You know, 15 years down the road, you won't be able to get the ball joints and stuff to keep those vehicles on the road. So, you know, take that for what you will. But I'm going to say 20, 30 years down the road, it's going to be hard-pressed to see, like, these old cars from the 80s, 90s, see any of them on the road. Because if a lot of manufacturers stop making parts, there's no point in trying to fight it and keep a vehicle on the road unless you're modifying it and you're finding stuff off the shelf to keep a vehicle on the road. You know, engine swaps, stuff like that. It all depends on your platform, what you're working on, wrenching on, and all that stuff. Well, I think that's going to do it for the stream today. I know I'm a bit all over the place as far as like subject. I'm a little smoked in the head, I guess. After losing my job here, I'm trying to find a moment of clarity, if you will, by streaming and sharing the experience with you. You know, I just want to get back to a point where I'm not stressed out all the time. So thank you for joining me on the stream. I appreciate every single one of you that joined the stream, and I appreciate everybody's like a little bit of input in the comments below. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Until then, Stay safe out there and keep your wheels on the ground where they belong. Peace, guys.